Welcome back to another episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother? In this alternate Naruto universe, one small twist changes everything. What if Naruto wasn't alone? What if he grew up with someone stronger, smarter, and born to rewrite destiny itself? Today, we dive deeper into the story of Kaito Uzumaki, Naruto's powerful older brother whose existence shakes the entire Shinobi world. New alliances form, new enemies rise, and the future of Konoha may never be the same again. So sit back, relax, and get ready, because this episode is about to change everything. The night sky was softly illuminated by the faint glow of the moon. Inside the Uzumaki residence, everything seemed peaceful and calm, just as it always was. Kushina sat on the couch, humming quietly to herself while knitting. She was trying to keep her hands busy because today was the day Tsunade and Kaito-kun were going to enact the plan to instate Tsunade as the fifth Hokage. Kushina felt uneasy, hoping with all her heart that everything would go smoothly. Knitting helped calm her nerves, so she kept at it, using the gentle click of her needles to steady herself. Across the room, Naruto and Karen were sitting at the coffee table, working through some school assignments. Naruto let out a groan, glaring down at his workbook. "This is stupid. Why do I even have to learn math to become a ninja, databao?" He whined and pressed his forehead against the wood as if the table might provide answers. Karen glanced at him over her glasses and rolled her eyes. "Naruto, it's not that hard," she said, slightly amused. "Numbers can help you plan strategies, you know." Naruto pretended to sob, tears he didn't actually have welling up as he lifted his head. "But I'll never pass the academy if they keep asking these weird questions," he moaned, clutching at his chest. "Everyone will leave me behind and graduate without me." Kushina paused her knitting and reached over to gently bop her son on the head with the back of her hand. "Stop being so dramatic, Naruto-chan," she said with a sigh. Her voice was affectionate but firm. "You can do it if you try." "Ow, that hurt." Naruto shot back, rubbing his head, looking a bit wounded but mostly just annoyed. Karen giggled softly, enjoying the playful back and forth between mother and son. Just then, Shizen entered, carrying a tray of tea. She carefully set it down on a corner of the table not covered by books. Glancing at Naruto, who was still pouting and cradling his head, Shizen offered a warm smile. "It can't be that bad, Naruto-kun. Come on, let me help you." Naruto's eyes lit up with relief. "Really? You'll help me, Shizen-ne? Thanks." He sat up straighter, looking suddenly more hopeful. Outside, in the trees surrounding the Uzumaki home, several of Kaito's clones kept watch. One of these clones stood on a high branch, arms crossed, leaning casually against the trunk. Using the mind's eye of Kagura, he was carefully sensing everything happening in the Hokage's office. Kaito felt confident that everything would go according to plan. However, as the clone surveyed the events unfolding at the Hokage's office, something unexpected happened. Danzo's figure vanished in a puff of smoke. It was only a shadow clone. The Kaito clone's brows shot up in surprise. "What? Did Danzo figure out our plan?" it muttered to itself. Quickly, it searched the village with its sensing ability, just as the original Kaito was doing from the Hokage tower, looking for Danzo's chakra signature. The clone's eyes went wide when he detected a large number of shinobi attacking the Uchihaclan district. At the same time, he sensed the original Kaito teleporting to the nearest Hiration marker near the Uchiha compound. The clone cursed under its breath. "This is bad. Danzo must have known all along. But how? We made sure no one we spoke to could leak anything." Without wasting another second, the clone rushed toward the ANBU squad assigned to protect Kaito's family that day. Tenzo, wearing a bear mask, was on duty. The clone appeared beside Tenzo so suddenly that the ANBU nearly jumped. "Ah!" Tenzo exclaimed, catching his breath. "You scared me, Kaito." "There's no time for that," the Kaito clone said urgently. "Tenzo, you and your squad need to head to the Uchiha clan district right now. They're under attack by root shinobi." Tenzo stiffened. "What? Are you sure?" The clone nodded, voice low and serious. "We don't have time for a full explanation. The short version, the third Hokage has been replaced. Lady Tsunade is the 5th Hokage, and she's already arrested the elders for their wrongdoings. Danzo escaped and is attacking the Uchiha clan as we speak. Another ANBU dropped down beside them. What did you just say? Lady Tsunade is the new Hokage. Yes, confirmed the clone, not pausing for breath. We can't waste time. Around 1,000 root shinobi are attacking the Uchiha. Go now. I'll guard this place. Tenzo trusted Kaito's strength. He knew Kaito was at least as strong as Kakashi. Plus, Kaito always kept about 10 clones around to protect his home. Tenzo nodded firmly. All right team, move out. As Tenzo and the ANBU team vanished, the Kaito clone remained behind. I should go too, he thought, but protecting my family takes priority. The clone moved swiftly, body flickering to the rooftop. Settling down, he resumed its sensing, splitting its attention between the battle at the Uchiha compound and keeping watch for any threat that might approach the Uzumaki home. He sensed the original Kaito rushing around the Uchiha district, cutting down root operatives and rescuing people. It also detected Tsunade, Kakashi, Itachi, and the others arriving on the scene, counterattacking, and slowly gaining the upper hand. The clone scanned the rest of the village, checking for other attacks. The assault was focused solely on the Uchiha clan. Danzo must want them wiped out if he's already branded a traitor, he thought grimly. Just then, another shadow clone landed beside it. Hey, are you sensing what I am? There are dozens of tiny chakra signatures all around us. The first clone stood up, concentrating. Yeah, they feel like small animals or birds, but this many all at once. Something's off. The first clone flickered away, heading toward the nearest suspicious chakra signature in the trees. Landing on a branch, he peered into the darkness. A glint of silver flashed, and the clone had just enough time to raise a kunai and block it. Its eyes narrowed. A root operative. How did we not sense them until now? He muttered, leaping back as 10 root shinobi emerged from hiding. They quickly formed hand signs, releasing combined torrents of flame. Combination ninjutsu, flame tower. Their voices echoed as multiple streams of fire melded into one raging inferno. The clone responded by weaving his own signs. Water style, great water wall. He pulled moisture from the air, forming a massive water wall. The two jutsu collided in a violent burst of steam that exploded where fire met water, hissing and obscuring the battlefield. The clone had to skid backward as he landed on the ground. Chakra chains erupted from the clone's back, anchoring themselves into the earth and forming an adamantine sealing chain barrier around the house. Even so, he realized too late that about half of the 200 or so root shinobi had slipped inside the perimeter before the barrier was fully formed. Damn it, he cursed as he parried a sword strike, swiftly cutting down a masked operative. Each clone created 2 more clones for backup. The clones flickered around, cutting down any root operative that approached, desperately defending the home. Inside, Shizen had just finished helping Naruto work through a math problem for the second time. See? It isn't that hard, Naruto-kun, she said, hoping he'd finally grasp it. Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Could you show me again? He laughed nervously, feeling a bit silly. Shizen sighed, though it was fond. All right, one more time, she agreed. Try to follow along carefully. Kushina, still knitting, snickered quietly at Shizun's predicament. However, her humor vanished instantly when a thunderous explosion shook the house. Everyone froze. Kushina's instincts, long dormant from her shinobi days, kicked in. She jumped up, kunai in hand. Get inside, both of you. She swiftly pulled Karen and Naruto behind her, protective and alert. Shizun also readied herself, sunbon poised between her fingers. The sound of fierce combat echoed from outside, jutsu clashing, steel meeting steel. Without warning, the living room window shattered as a root operative lunged through with a tonto. Kushina reacted on pure reflex, blocking a descending tonto with her kunai. She shoved him back and delivered a swift kick to another masked attacker who lunged at Naruto and Karen. Stay behind me. Kushina shouted, her voice tight. She sidestepped a sword strike from a third operative and drove her kunai into his skull, then kicked the corpse into another incoming enemy. Shizun threw several poisoned sunbon, striking 2 root shinobi in quick succession. One staggered, the other collapsed. As another attacker rushed in, Shizun ducked low, sweeping his legs and driving a fistful of sunbon into his mask. She leapt back to Kushina's side. 2 root operatives retreated momentarily, weaving hand signs. One unleashed a torrent of flames, while the other directed a wind jutsu to intensify the blaze. The combined inferno roared toward Kushina and Shizun, who stood protectively in front of the children. Kushina tried desperately to summon her chakra chains. They erupted from her back but then faltered as pain tore through her abdomen, causing them to flicker and vanish. Kushina gasped, clutching her stomach as the magnified flames consumed the front of the house. Wood splintered, and a massive explosion shook the foundations. Outside, a Kaito clone saw the fiery blast and shouted, panic in his voice, "No mom." Before he could rush in, a root blade sank into him, dispelling the clone instantly. As the smoke cleared inside, instead of charred remains, there stood a green, skeletal ribcage made of chakra shielding Kushina, Shizun, Naruto, and Karen. It was a Susanoo, Shusui's Susanoo. Shusui stood before them, his single eye bleeding, Mangekyo Sharingan spinning wildly. "Are you all right?" he asked, voice taut with effort, never looking away from the attackers. Shizun nodded. "Thank you, Shusui-kun," she breathed relieved. Kushina was on the ground, clutching her stomach. The pain was overwhelming. Naruto knelt beside her, tears in his eyes. "Mom, are you all right?" he asked, voice trembling. Karen stood next to him, protective and worried. Shusui's Susanoo flickered slightly, and he spoke urgently. "You need to get to a safe place. Is there somewhere secure inside the house?" Kushina forced herself to speak through the pain. "The basement," she said, voice strained. "It's protected by seals." Shusui nodded. "Good. You head there. I'll hold them off." Susanoo's arm swung forward, scattering a wave of root shinobi. Shizun supported Kushina, guiding her deeper into the house, while Naruto and Karen stuck close, eyes wide and frightened. Seeing Shusui, one of the root shinobi shouted, "It's Shusui Uchiha. He's alive." Several of them attacked at once, but Shusui created multiple afterimages, each darting forward with lethal precision. Steel flashed, and root operatives fell one after another. While Shusui provided a distraction, Shizun guided Kushina deeper into the house, Naruto and Karen right behind. They were only steps away from the basement door when 4 more root operatives appeared. Shizun rushed forward, engaging them directly, hoping to give Kushina and the children time to escape. One of the root operatives broke away, lunging at Kushina with his katana raised high. Kushina, still in pain and supported by Naruto and Karen, couldn't block in time. The katana was blocked by Kaito. He had teleported in front of his mother just then. Before the root operative could react, Kaito slashed forward, taking the man's head off in a single fluid motion. "Kaito nii." Naruto and Karen shouted, relief flooding their voices. Kaito didn't even glance at them. He simply closed his eyes and vanished. In the next few seconds, a blur of red lightning flickered in and out of sight, both inside and around the Uzumaki residence. The sound of startled cries filled the air, but it all happened so quickly that to the onlookers it was over in the blink of an eye. Within moments, every last root operative who had dared to attack the home lay defeated. When Kaito reappeared, in front of Kushina, Naruto, and Karen, he gasped for breath, falling to one knee, his body drenched in sweat. "Hiration level 3 massacre," he muttered. It was his version of Minato's spiraling flash super round dance howl style 3. But Kaito preferred his own name for it. He looked up, concern etched onto his face as he took in Naruto, Karen, and finally Kushina's condition. "Are you guys okay?" he asked, voice strained with worry. But the moment he truly noticed Kushina's state, his anxiety spiked. "Mom." Shizun rushed over, kneeling beside Kushina and checking her over. "I'll take care of her," she assured him as she carefully administered some pills to help calm the flare of Kushina's chakra. "Don't worry, she'll be all right. She just needs to rest." That technique she tried to use aggravated her condition. Naruto's eyes were large and wet. Mom's gonna be okay, right? He asked softly, desperately seeking reassurance. Karen hovered nearby, anxiety making her voice tremble. Aunt Kushina will recover, won't she? Shizen offered both of them a reassuring smile. Yes, she will. She just pushed herself too far. Give her a bit of time. As Shizen eased Kushina down to lie more comfortably on the floor, Kushina winced and asked, "What's going on? Why were we attacked?" Her voice was unsteady, but she was trying her best to stay calm. At that moment, Shursui approached them. Kaito managed a shaky sigh of relief before explaining, "Danzo found out about what we were doing. He's launched an attack on the Uchiha and hit us here to create a distraction." Shursui's single, intense eye widened. The Uchiha clan is under attack? He moved as if to rush out the door, but Kaito raised a hand to stop him. "Don't go, Shursui," Kaito said, voice firm but sympathetic. "You're still hurt and not fully recovered. Lady Tsunade and the others have already arrived to help. Everything is under control. I need you to stay here and protect everyone while I head over." Shursui tensed, torn by the urge to protect his clan. But he knew Kaito was right. His shoulders slumped slightly, and he nodded reluctantly. "All right," he said quietly. As one of Kaito's clones moved forward to pick Kushina up and carry her to her room, Shursui stood guard. Kaito nodded to him before teleporting away. Kaito forced a small smile and assured his mother, "I'm fine," pulling his arm gently from Hataru's grasp. He was far from fine. The adrenaline from the attack was draining away, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion from the Hiratian level 3 massacre and the sleepless nights spent watching over Kushina. But the Hokage had summoned him, and he couldn't afford to rest. He squeezed Kushina's hand one last time. "I'll be back as soon as I can, Mom. Please, just rest." He gave Hataru a quick, knowing look. "Hataru, please stay here. Watch over them." Hataru immediately sank into a kneeling position by Kushina's bed, her pale eyes serious. "I won't leave their side, Kaito. Go." Kaito nodded once, then vanished in a faint golden flash. He reappeared just outside the Hokage's office, the ANBU guard snapping to attention at his sudden arrival. Kaito simply nodded toward the door. The guard pushed it open, and Kaito stepped into a room filled with the heavy atmosphere of a command center after a successful but costly battle. Tsunade, looking utterly spent but radiating fierce resolve, sat hunched over the desk, her face shadowed. Next to her stood Shikoku Nara, meticulously reviewing a map of the village. Fugoku Uchiha stood across the desk, his expression a grim mask of relief and barely contained fury. The scent of ozone and smoke still clung to the air, a faint reminder of the night's violence. "Kaito, you're here," Tsunade said, her voice rough, lacking its usual boom. She gestured sharply to a seat. "Sit down. You look like hell." Kaito ignored the seat, preferring to stand. "I'm fine, Lady Hokage. I came as quickly as I could. What's the situation?" Shikoku pointed a finger at a section of the map corresponding to the Uchiha district, which was marked with dozens of small, red circles. "The attack is over. We pushed them out of the Uchiha compound just before dawn. The coordinated counteroffensive was a success, thanks to the quick response of the Uchiha, Kakashi, Itachi, and your shadow clones." "We suffered casualties," Fugoku interjected, his voice low and heavy, "but we managed to evacuate most of the women and children. The root operatives were merciless, focused entirely on slaughter." He didn't mention the complete annihilation of the Uchiha police force headquarters, knowing Kaito was aware of Obito's involvement. Tsunade slammed her fist lightly on the desk. "We captured close to 200 root members and killed over 500 Kaito. Danzo threw almost 1,000 men at the Uchiha district. This wasn't just a distraction, he intended to wipe them out completely." Kaito's hands clenched. "What about Danzo? Any trace of the real one?" Shikoku sighed, running a hand over his spiky hair. "Troublesome. No. We tracked the main residual chakra signature escaping the village. It was a clone, heavily reinforced with seals. The original Danzo is gone. He used the chaos to slip away." "And the children?" Kaito demanded, his gaze locked on Tsunade. The children he kidnapped for Orochimaru's experiments? Tsunade leaned back, rubbing her temples. That's why you're here, Kaito. The interrogation of the captured root members is underway, but they are all heavily conditioned. We haven't cracked them yet. We need intelligence on Danzo's immediate plans and, most importantly, the location of those children. You have the best sensing ability in the village. I've been searching the entire time, Kaito admitted, but the village is too large, and the area outside the walls is even larger. His chakra signature is completely masked. If he used a transformation or a sealing technique. Kaito frowned, thinking hard. Danzo was too cautious to leave a clear trail. He likely had multiple hidden bases. Fugoku stepped forward, his eyes burning with controlled intensity. My clan has suffered grievously. We are prepared to assist in the hunt for Danzo, but we must protect our own borders first. We need to know where he is going. Kaito took a deep breath, pushing past the pain in his temples. He needed to think like a desperate, cornered warlord. Danzo wouldn't just flee, he would seek refuge or ally himself with someone who could help him regain power or continue his twisted experiments. He wouldn't leave without a fallback plan. He needs resources and a place to hide. He has ties to Orochimaru. He might be heading toward the Land of Sound, but that's too obvious. Kaito activated his mind's eye of Kagura to its maximum, extending his senses far beyond the village walls, trying to find anything, no matter how small. He focused on areas of residual dark chakra, old seals, and established, hidden structures. After a moment of intense concentration, Kaito's eyes snapped open. There is a cluster of dark chakra signatures far to the southwest, beyond the border of the Land of Fire, he reported, pointing toward a specific spot on Shikoku's map. It's faint, but distinct, old, corrupted chakra. It feels like a long-term base. It's not Danzo's signature, but it feels rooted in his influence. It could be a holding facility or a secondary headquarters. Shikoku immediately leaned in, marking the location. Southwest. Near the Land of Rivers. That's a plausible route for someone fleeing toward the Land of Wind or a rogue state. Tsunade straightened in her chair, a grim determination settling on her face. That's where the children are. Danzo wouldn't risk bringing them with him if he was running. He would secure them and meet them later. She looked at Kaito. I need you to confirm that location and get those children back. This is your mission, Kaito. Take a team and go. Now. Kaito nodded, the exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Understood, Lady Hokage. I'll take a small, fast team. Kakashi and Itachi. They have experience with root and work quickly. Tsunade looked at Shikoku, who nodded assent. Permission granted. Move out, Kaito. We'll hold the village together here and continue the cleanup. Do not engage Danzo if you find him. The priority is the children. I know, Kaito affirmed, feeling the weight of the mission. He glanced at Fugoku, a silent vow passing between them to see justice done for the Uchiha clan. With a nod to his new Hokage, Kaito blurred out of the office, already calculating the fastest route to find Kakashi and Itachi. He had a base to infiltrate, children to rescue, and a war criminal to hunt. The fight was far from over. Kaito forced a small smile and assured his mother, I'm fine, pulling his arm gently from Hataru's grasp. He was far from fine. The adrenaline from the attack was draining away, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion from the Hiratian level 3 massacre and the sleepless night spent watching over Kushina. But the Hokage had summoned him, and he couldn't afford to rest. He squeezed Kushina's hand one last time. I'll be back as soon as I can, Mom. Please, just rest. He gave Hataru a quick, knowing look. Hataru, please stay here. Watch over them. Hataru immediately sank into a kneeling position by Kushina's bed, her pale eyes serious. I won't leave their side, Kaito. Go. Kaito nodded once, then vanished in a faint golden flash. He reappeared just outside the Hokage tower, leaping up the side and landing lightly beside the Hokage's office window, tapping on the glass. Yo, you called, Lady Tsunade? Kaito asked, sliding the window open and climbing through. Tsunade glanced up from behind the Hokage's desk and gave a curt nod. Get in here, brat. The office was already crowded. Shikoku Nara stood at the back, arms crossed and eyes closed, as though deep in thought. Fugoku Uchiha was there, arms folded, his face grave. Ibiki Marino flipped through a clipboard of notes, his eyes skimming each page. Kakashi leaned against the wall near the window. He nodded to Kaito when he entered. Tsunade, surrounded by papers and scrolls in a chaotic arrangement, placed the files down, steepled her fingers, and fixed her gaze on the group. "All right," she said. "Report." Shikoku opened his eyes and sighed, stepping forward. Every root shinobi involved in the incident was either killed or captured. The total number of root operatives we've accounted for is around 1,000, not counting the ones who attacked the Uzumaki household. Search and rescue operations are still ongoing with help from the Hyuga clan. We've also raided all known root bases listed in the official records with the Hyuga's assistance, but every one of them was completely barren, meaning they knew of our plan beforehand. We've dispatched tracker teams to follow any leads, but so far all trails have gone cold. He paused, his tone heavy. Danzo used the attack on the Uchiha clan and the Uzumakis to cover his escape. Thanks to your involvement, Lady Tsunade, and the healing from Kotsuyu, casualties were minimized. We have about 100 confirmed civilian casualties and around 200 shinobi casualties. Tsunade nodded somberly. So that's the damage. What about the captured root members? Any leads on hidden bases we didn't know about? Ibiki shook his head. No, Lady Tsunade. The root shinobi have seals placed on their minds. Any attempt to probe too deeply results in their memories being wiped. They can't, or won't, reveal anything. We're stuck on that front. Tsunade cursed under her breath and began to pace. What about the elders and my old teacher, the third Hokage? Do they have any clue where Danzo might have fled? Ibiki bowed slightly. They're not forthcoming with information. As for the third Hokage, he claims to only know of the bases already on record. He doesn't seem to have any information about Danzo's whereabouts. Tsunade halted and narrowed her eyes. I want a thorough investigation of the elders. Ibiki, you have my permission to look into their minds. Find some way past whatever defenses they have. I need answers. Ibiki nodded. It shall be done, Lady Tsunade. He turned and left the office, his presence slipping away like a shadow. After Ibiki was gone, Tsunade clenched her fists. That bastard got away. She growled, frustration plain in her voice. Shikoku leaned forward, brow furrowed. How did Danzo know about our plan? We took pains to keep it quiet. Kaito cleared his throat. It's probably because of a leak on the daimyo's side. Danzo must have had someone feeding him information from a higher level. He had too perfect a window to act. Kakashi pushed himself off the wall. There's another possibility. He might have been in contact with that masked man. Tsunade turned sharply to Kakashi. What makes you say that? Kakashi straightened. During the attack, the masked man was the one who dealt with the Uchiha police force, and later Itachi confronted him. If Danzo and the masked man's interests aligned, even briefly, it could explain the timing. Kaito's eyes widened slightly at that revelation. So he killed off the Uchiha police force, just like in the original. He murmured to himself, thinking back to his past life's knowledge. Tsunade's gaze snapped to Kakashi. Itachi fought the masked man during the attack. Shikoku's eyes narrowed, listening intently, while Fugoku's eyes widened in shock, then hardened. Kakashi nodded and raised his hand in a subtle signal. Itachi flickered into the room, dropping to one knee. He wore his ANBU uniform and mask. Hi, Lady Tsunade. Tsunade waved a hand. At ease, Itachi. He rose, pushing his mask up so his face was visible. She continued, You confronted the masked man? Itachi nodded. Yes, Lady Tsunade. I encountered him while defending the clan. He was about to kill my friend Izumi. She confronted him after he murdered several of our police officers. His voice was quiet and composed. Tsunade's face was grim. So he was working with Danzo or, at the very least, took advantage of the situation. Kaito stepped forward, speaking softly. I think he just took advantage of the chaos. Danzo and this masked man don't strike me as the types to follow each other's orders. Itachi's gaze dropped momentarily before he continued. There's more. During our fight, I managed to land a blow and was sure I had killed him. I watched his chakra signature vanish, just like it does when someone dies. But after a short while, he appeared behind me again. If not for Kakashi-senpai's intervention, I wouldn't be standing here right now. Tsunade's jaw tightened, and Shikoku's brow knitted. You're certain you killed him once? Itachi nodded. I'm certain. His chakra disappeared completely. Yet he returned as though nothing had happened. Tsunade shook her head. How is that even possible? Fugoku closed his eyes and spoke in a measured tone, Izanagi. At the mention of that word, Itachi's eyes flicked to his father. Tsunade frowned. Izanagi. Fugoku opened his eyes, voice heavy. It's a forbidden Uchiha technique. By sacrificing a Sharingan, the user can rewrite reality itself for a short period. Life and death can be bent, and outcomes altered. It would also explain why the dead Uchiha police officers were all missing their eyes. He probably collected them to fuel this ability. Tsunade looked ill, fingers curling into her palms. Shikoku's expression turned grim. So you think he took the eyes of the fallen Uchiha to replenish his supply of Sharingan and continue using Izanagi? Fugoku inclined his head. It's possible, and given what we've seen, very likely. Kakashi said nothing, turmoil churning inside him. He suspected the masked man's identity, but he kept his silence. If it truly was Obito, he needed proof. He couldn't just throw accusations around without being sure. The room fell silent. Tsunade resumed pacing, angry energy crackling around her. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke decisively. We can't dwell on what we can't change. The masked man's gone, Danzo's gone. We need to move forward. She turned to Shikoku. We need to pick up more mission requests starting tomorrow. We can't let word spread that we're weakened. Increase border patrols and keep all available jonin in the village for the time being. Her attention moved to Fugoku. I want the Uchiha to prepare for the funeral ceremony tomorrow. After that, we'll hold my inauguration as the 5th Hokage. I don't want to drag this out any longer than necessary. The village needs stability. Fugoku nodded, accepting the task. Kakashi and Itachi also inclined their heads, acknowledging her orders. Tsunade sighed heavily. You're all dismissed. Get some rest, prepare for tomorrow. We have a lot of rebuilding and reorganizing to do. With that, the shinobi left one by one. Kakashi vanished in a silent shunshin, Itachi followed, and Fugoku walked out with measured steps. Shikoku slipped away quietly, lost in thought. Kaito lingered, watching Tsunade. Once they were alone, Tsunade leaned against the desk, arms folded across her chest. She let out a long, frustrated breath. This is a mess, she said plainly. Shikoku, who was halfway out the door, paused and added quietly, We couldn't have expected this, Lady Tsunade. Even the best plans have blind spots. Tsunade frowned. I know. We'll deal with it. We'll keep watch on the daimyo's court to see if we can find the leak. But for now, we can't do much else. Kaito spoke up softly, I know this isn't ideal, but for what it's worth, I think you're doing great. Good to hear that you think so, brat. Tsunade sat down in her chair, leaning back. How's Kushina doing? Shizen mentioned she was injured during the attack. And what about those two brats, how are they holding up? Kaito settled into a chair opposite her. Mom's doing fine now. She woke up about an hour ago. As for Naruto and Karen, they're shaken but okay. Good. Tsunade nodded, her eyes softening as she looked at Kaito. Go and get some rest, brat. You look dead on your feet. I'll come by to check on her later, once I'm done here. Kaito offered a tired smile, his exhaustion evident in the droop of his shoulders. Yes, Lady Tsunade, he said quietly, then slipped back out the same window he'd entered, heading for home. Alone again, Tsunade let out a soft sigh and turned her attention back to the paperwork spread haphazardly across her desk. Everything had changed overnight, and there was much to do. What will Tsunade do next to manage the village crisis and hunt Danzo? Kaito offered a tired smile, his exhaustion evident in the droop of his shoulders. Yes, Lady Tsunade, he said quietly, then slipped back out the same window he'd entered, heading for home. Alone again, Tsunade let out a soft sigh and turned her attention back to the paperwork spread haphazardly across her desk. Everything had changed overnight, and there was much to do. For now, she would focus on sorting through the mess of reports and documents, one page at a time. The next morning, a somber silence settled over the village. Under a gray, clouded sky, many shinobi and civilians made their way to the Konoha cemetery. They dressed in black, heads bowed, to pay their respects to the Uchiha who had fallen during what was now known as the Uchiha incident. At the front of the gathering, Fugoku and Mikoto Uchiha stood stiffly. Mikoto's head was bowed in respect. By her side were Itachi and Sasuke, both solemn and silent. Behind them, the rest of the Uchiha clan formed a quiet line, dressed in black as they came forward, one by one, to place flowers at the graves of the lost. Some cried openly, while others stood still, holding their sorrow inside. Shusui, bandages still visible beneath his robes, gently laid his flower among the others, whispering a soft farewell. Near the front, Tsunade stood with Shizune, offering respect as the new Hokage. Many others from various clans were present as well, their silent presence a show of unity in the face of tragedy. Among them, Hataru stood with her parents and her clan, their expressions serious and thoughtful. A short distance away, Kaito stood beside his mother, Kushina, who was seated in a wheelchair. Naruto and Karen stood close by, also dressed in black. Kushina was still too weak to walk, her body recovering from the strain of using her chakra during the attack. Yet, she had insisted on coming here, unwilling to remain at home during such an important moment. When the ceremony ended, the people began to drift away, leaving the cemetery in small groups, heads bowed and voices low. As the crowd gradually thinned out, Kaito gently pushed Kushina's wheelchair through the cemetery's quiet pathways, with Naruto and Karen walking close behind. They soon approached a familiar grave, the one bearing the name 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Kushina looked at the carved letters and gave a small, trembling smile. Tears started to form at the corners of her eyes as she gazed at the headstone, memories and emotions welling up within her. "Hi, Minakuan," she said quietly, her voice trembling just a bit. "It's been a while, hasn't it? We're all safe. Well, mostly safe." She let out a small, tired laugh. "I know you must be wondering what I'm doing in a wheelchair. Don't worry, I'm fine. Tsunade says I'll be back on my feet in about a week. I'm just a bit weak after trying to use my chakra, you know." Her voice grew quieter, filled with longing. "So much is changing, Minato," she said softly. "I wish you were here to see it all. The village is working hard to heal, and Tsunade is stepping up as Hokage. I think you'd be proud of her." Tears shone in her eyes as she continued, "We miss you, Minakuan, every day. But don't worry, we're taking care of each other." With that, Kushina gently placed a bouquet of fresh flowers at the base of the gravestone. Her last words drifted off into a soft murmur, carried away by the gentle breeze that rustled through the cemetery. Naruto and Karen said nothing, standing quietly beside Kushina. Kaito stood silently, his gaze drifting upward, lost in his own thoughts. "Even if I change events, some things just stay the same, huh?" He heard footsteps approaching and turned to see Hataru and her family walking over. Kushina noticed them too and quickly wiped her tears, putting on a small smile. "Hey you guys," she greeted quietly. "We're just visiting Minato, you know?" Hitomi, Hataru's mother, gave a gentle smile and stepped closer. "We wanted to check on you, Kushina. How are you feeling?" Kushina shrugged lightly, trying to sound cheerful. "I'm fine, really. Just a bit weak. I overdid it the night before, and now I have to stay in this wheelchair for a little while. Nothing too serious. I'll be walking around and driving everyone crazy again soon enough." Hitomi leaned down and gave Kushina a gentle hug. "I'm glad to hear you're okay. You had us worried." While the adults spoke, Hataru moved toward Kaito. She looked him over, noticing he seemed a bit less exhausted than yesterday. "How are you doing, Kaikuan?" she asked softly. "You seem better than before." Kaito managed a small grin. "I'm fine, Hataru. I just needed some rest, that's all." He began pushing Kushina's wheelchair again, guiding them away from the gravesite. They soon came across Mikoto Uchiha and her younger son, Sosuke. Mikoto, worry evident on her face, approached Kushina. "Are you all right, Kushina?" she asked gently. Kushina nodded, giving Mikoto a reassuring smile. "I'm okay, just a little weak, that's all. Nothing to worry about." Just then, a familiar voice called out, "Hey brat. There you are. I've been looking for you everywhere." It was Tsunade, walking toward them with Shizun at her side. She had one hand on her hip, looking mildly annoyed but also relieved to have found Kaito. Shizun followed, carrying a small piglet. Kaito raised an eyebrow, confused. "Huh? What's going on, Tsunade-sama?" he asked. "Why were you looking for me?" Tsunade tapped her foot, seeming a bit annoyed. "Did you forget we have to prepare for my inauguration, kid?" she said. "I've been running around trying to find you." Kaito looked even more puzzled. "Your inauguration? What do you need me for?" he asked, genuinely not understanding. Tsunade let out an irritated sigh. "Because, brat, I'm going to officially name you as my successor." That announcement hit like a shockwave. Everyone who didn't already know stared in disbelief. Hataru gasped quietly. "Kaikuan is going to be the 6th?" she asked, turning wide eyes on Kaito. Naruto practically shouted, "You're gonna be the 6th Hokage, Kaito and I." "That's awesome." Hayashi widened his eyes, surprised by the announcement, while Hitomi looked back and forth between Kushina and Mikoto, noticing that they didn't seem as shocked. Kaito let out a tired sigh. "I never agreed to that," he muttered. "You said I was one of the candidates, not that I was going to be announced as your official successor. Plus, I'm only 12 years old." Tsunade shrugged, looking totally unconcerned. "Too bad. I didn't get much of a choice when I took this job, and now you don't either. We need someone to follow after me, and you fit the bill." She reached out and grabbed the back of Kaito's shirt, lifting him off the ground. He let out a startled yelp, flailing his arms. "Hey, put me down. I can't just leave my mom like this," he protested. Tsunade rolled her eyes, completely ignoring his protests. "Don't give me that," she said. "I know you always keep a few shadow clones around to watch over them. Besides, Shizun will stay with your mother, right, Shizun?" Shizun gave a small nod. "Yes, Lady Tsunade," she agreed, her voice calm and reassuring. "See?" Tsunade said triumphantly. "Kushina, I'll return your son after the ceremony. We have a lot to get ready." With that, she started walking off with Kaito tossed over her shoulder, carrying him off. Kushina watched with a grin, waving goodbye. "Have fun, Kaikuan," she teased lightly, not bothering to hide her amusement. Kaito gave his mother a betrayed look, but seeing that she was in good hands, he sighed and let Tsunade drag him away. She literally hoisted him over her shoulder, marching off toward the Hokage tower. Later that evening, after the inauguration ceremony had finished, Tsunade and Kaito found themselves in the Hokage's office. Tsunade's desk was covered in stacks of paperwork, reports, mission requests, budget summaries, and letters from other nations. She let out a long, dramatic groan. "Why is there so much paperwork? I swear it grows when I'm not looking," she complained, resting her forehead in her palms. Kaito tried not to laugh. "Why are you surprised? The Hokage's work mostly involves paperwork," he said quietly. "I did ask if you were sure, remember?" Tsunade lifted her head and shot him a glare. "I blame you for this," she grumbled. "You and your big mouth sweet-talked me into taking this position. I should never have let you convince me." Kaito held up his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, you're the best person for the job. I just pointed it out," he replied calmly. "I don't recall forcing you." Tsunade grumbled under her breath, muttering something about dumb red-headed brats, as she slumped forward. Just then, Shizun entered the office, carefully balancing another large stack of papers in her arms. "Lady Tsunade," she said briskly, "these need to be done by the end of today. Come on, you shouldn't slack off. There are more where these came from if you don't keep up." With that, Shizen turned and left, letting the door close softly behind her. Tsunade stared at the new pile as if it might sprout fangs and attack. She looked like she was a second away from tears. Kaito watched Tsunade's despair with mild amusement. "Why don't you use shadow clones to do the paperwork?" he suggested. "My dad used to do that when he was Hokage. That's how he managed to spend time outside of the office." Tsunade froze, staring at Kaito as if he had just revealed the world's biggest secret. "Shadow clones," she repeated dumbly. Suddenly, she stood up and slammed her hand on the desk. "Why didn't I think of that before?" Without waiting, she made a hand sign and created 2 shadow clones. The clones immediately grabbed some of the papers and began working through them. Tsunade looked so relieved it was almost funny. "This changes everything," she said, feeling happier than she had all day. Kaito smiled slightly. "Did you really think Dad was stuck behind a desk all the time? He was a genius, you know." Tsunade sighed, sounding content for once. "Well, that's one problem solved." Then she turned to Kaito, looking him up and down. "But why are you still here, brat? Don't you have something else to do now that the inauguration is over?" Kaito hesitated, his eyes serious. "Actually, I do have something to tell you, but it should be in private." That caught Tsunade's attention. She waved her hand, silently telling the ANBU stationed in the corners of the room to leave. They vanished without a sound. Only the clones, too busy to pay attention, remained. "All right," Tsunade said, "what is it?" Kaito formed a few hand signs and pressed his palm against the floor. A faint, glowing seal spread across the room and then faded. He turned back to Tsunade, who was now looking at him with narrowed eyes. "Is it really that important?" she asked, her voice low and serious. Kaito nodded, folding his arms. "You might know this, but I've been keeping an eye on the masked man ever since the Nine-Tails attack," he began quietly. "I've sent clones out all around to gather information on him and track his movements. Over the past few years, I've learned quite a bit." Tsunade crossed her arms, her expression grim. "So you found something?" she prompted, her tone sharp and focused. Kaito nodded, his tone serious. "Yeah, I found out that the masked man is putting together a mercenaries group comprised of S-class shinobi. They call themselves the Akatsuki. For now, they are doing odd jobs here and there for money. Your old teammate, Orochimaru, is one of them." Tsunade's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure Orochimaru is one of them?" Her voice turned sharp with concern. Kaito nodded. "Yeah, he's been a part of the group for a few years now. But there's more. Everywhere they go, they seem to suddenly gather information on the Jinchuriki. From what I've gathered, they are after the tailed beasts." Kaito reached into his pouch, took out a scroll, and unsealed a file. Handing it over, he said, "See for yourself." Tsunade opened the file and began flipping through the pages. As she did, Kaito continued, "There's someone named Mukai Kohinata. He was part of Root and ANBU, an S-rank shinobi who hid his true strength. He got caught selling Konoha's intel to Kirigakure." Tsunade glanced up. "Selling intel to Kiri?" Kaito nodded. "Yes, but that's not the whole story. The reason he did it was because his son was terminally ill. He tried to get help from Konoha, but there aren't any real programs or support for cases like his. He was desperate." Tsunade's expression softened slightly. "I see," she said quietly. "Go on." Kaito continued, "Danzo found out about this and ordered Itachi to kill Mukai as part of his ANBU test." Tsunade's gaze sharpened again. "I take it Itachi didn't kill him? And Mukai is now part of the Akatsuki?" Kaito shook his head. "Mukai turned out to be stronger than both Itachi and Shursui combined when they confronted him. Well, sort of. He's a member of the Akatsuki, but not under his real name. During Itachi's mission, I confronted him and offered him an option, which he chose. He faked his death and is now known as Kurigane Sora, a missing ninja from the land of the bear. Tsunade was taken aback. Your spy in the Akatsuki? She leaned forward, frowning. How can you be sure he won't betray you? Kaito sighed. I saved his family from Danzo's root agents who were sent to eliminate them. In return, I promised Mukai a pardon for his past actions. I also placed a seal on him to prevent any betrayal. He understands that if he were to betray us, his family would lose the safe life I've arranged for them. Additionally, I was hoping you could take a look at his son. If we can help the boy, it should further strengthen Mukai's loyalty. Tsunade rubbed her temple, thinking it over. Where is his family now? They couldn't have stayed in the village if Danzo was after them. I relocated them to Hocho village, Kaito answered. But now that Danzo and the third Hokage's old influences are no longer a problem, can they return to Konoha? Tsunade let out a slow breath. If Mukai keeps his end of the deal and continues spying on the Akatsuki, then yes, I don't see why they can't return. It might actually give us an advantage, having him closer to home. Who else knows about this arrangement? Just me and Itachi, Kaito said, and now you. Tsunade nodded, looking tired but resolute. All right. Anything else I need to know? She asked, a hint of dry humor in her tone. Kaito scratched the back of his neck. It's more of a request. Raising an eyebrow, Tsunade leaned back. A request? What do you want, brat? Kaito met her gaze seriously. I want to learn senjutsu. Tsunade leaned back on the couch, her expression utterly blank as she regarded the boy. You want to learn senjutsu? She repeated, as though the very words were perplexing. Kaito nodded, resolute. Yes. I'd like to learn senjutsu, he clarified, meeting her gaze without hesitation. Could you ask your summons if she'd be willing to teach me? Tsunade's lips formed a tight line. She leaned back against the couch and crossed her arms. Why senjutsu, brat? She asked. You do realize learning senjutsu isn't something you can pick up like a simple taijutsu or ninjutsu. Jiraiya has spent over 20 years studying it, and he still hasn't fully mastered it. Honestly, there's only one person I know of who truly did, and that was my grandfather the first. And even that comes from stories I heard as a kid. If it were easy, half the shinobi in Konoha might know how to do it by now. So, why do you want senjutsu so badly? Kaito closed his eyes and thought of the night he received the memories of the shadow clone. How he felt he could do anything until he realized how much he had lost that day, his mother Kushina, his brother Naruto, and even his adopted sister Karen. He remembered how helpless his clone was, watching them get hit by that fire-style jutsu. He clenched his fists at his sides. That night proved I'm not strong enough. I wasn't strong enough. My family only survived because they were lucky, he said quietly. I don't ever want to feel that helpless again. If I'm going to protect the people I care about, I need to be stronger. Senjutsu is a way to get there. Tsunade eyed him for a moment. Finally, she let out an exasperated sigh, pinching the bridge of her nose. Listen, brat, she said, her voice softening despite her blunt words, you shouldn't blame yourself for what happened. It's not always about personal strength. Sometimes the world just tosses you into a storm you can't control. But let me make something clear. You are extremely talented, maybe more so than even your father was at your age. Some might say you're the most talented shinobi Konoha's ever produced. But all the talent in the world won't matter if you don't live long enough to use it. Senjutsu is dangerous. Most who tried to learn it either failed or ended up dead. Are you sure you still want to do this? Kaito met Tsunade's eyes. I know it's risky, he admitted. I also know Dad was the only other person who managed to learn senjutsu. He told me it was the hardest training he had ever done. But I still want to try. Tsunade sighed aloud, rubbing the bridge of her nose. She knew she wouldn't be able to convince him otherwise. Then, without warning, she uncrossed her legs and leaned back into the couch. All right, I'll ask Katsuyu if she's up for this. But I'm warning you now, if she says no, that's the end of it. You're not going to pester me about it again, got it? Kaito bowed his head just slightly. I understand. Good, she muttered. She stood up, then bit down on her thumb. A thin rivulet of blood appeared where her teeth broke the skin. "Stand back a little," she ordered, glancing at Kaito and then at the floor between them. She quickly formed a series of hand signs. "Summoning jutsu," Tsunade declared, pressing her palm onto the floor. A plume of thick white smoke erupted, momentarily obscuring everything in front of her. When it dissipated, a slug about the size of a large dinner plate sat there. Its top half was a pale blue and the bottom half white. "Lady Tsunade," the slug greeted, its voice calm and polite. "It's good to see you. How may I help you?" Almost immediately, it noticed the boy standing nearby. "Oh my, I almost forgot my manners. Hello. I am Katsuyu, Lady Tsunade's personal summon. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance." "It's nice to meet you too, Lady Katsuyu," Kaito said, bowing respectfully. "My name is Kaito Uzumaki." Tsunade wasted no time. She cut right to the chase, gesturing toward Kaito. "Katsuyu, I summoned you because this brat here wants to learn senjutsu. I'd like to know if you'd be willing to teach him." Katsuyu's antenna-like eyes swung back toward Tsunade. "You want me to teach him senjutsu?" she asked, as if to confirm she had heard correctly. "That's right," Tsunade said. "He's adamant about it. He insisted he wants to learn." Katsuyu paused, shifting her gaze between Tsunade and Kaito thoughtfully. She murmured after a moment. "He does seem to possess a large chakra reserve, something of a requirement for senjutsu. But I have to remind you that there has only been one successful senjutsu user from the Shikotsu forest. Your late grandfather was the last, my lady." Katsuyu's gaze settled on Kaito. "Are you certain you want to learn it, Kaito-kun? If you fail, there is no reversing the effects. Nature energy isn't something you can treat lightly. Even if you have the necessary chakra to sustain it, one misstep might be fatal." Kaito thought, so I was right then. Hashirama was a slug sage. He learned senjutsu from here. He nodded and asked, "Can you explain what senjutsu is?" "I know the general explanation." Katsuyu gave an approving nod. Her voice was calm. "First, to become a senjutsu user, you must learn to sense natural energy. It's the energy that flows through every living thing in this world, through every tree, every blade of grass. To enter sage mode, you must harmonize this energy with your own chakra. If you draw too little, you won't succeed in transforming. But if you draw too much..." She paused, letting the severity of the warning settle in. "Your body will dissolve into liquid, and you'll become one with the forest permanently." Kaito nodded, already knowing that. "So how exactly do I sense this natural energy?" he asked. Katsuyu gave a slight bob of her head. "To sense nature energy, you must first become one with nature. That means you must learn how to sit perfectly still and clear your mind until you can feel the energy flowing around you. Like a rock or a plant, you must quietly observe the life around you." "So it's the same as the toads then," Kaito thought, nodding. "So I'd have to learn how to become one with nature and remain perfectly still. That could take a while. How long before I manage to even sense nature energy?" "That depends entirely on you," Katsuyu explained. "Some learners can spend years, others less. However, there is a way to speed up the process. I can secrete a special substance that helps your body absorb nature energy more easily, giving you a sense of what you'll be feeling for. It could shorten the training time, but it also carries an added risk. If you lose control, if your concentration slips even a fraction, you could end up dissolving. Of course, if I'm near you, I can mitigate that by siphoning off the excess nature energy until you gain experience. But it's still dangerous." "It's similar to the toad oil," Kaito said with a frown, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "I see. So there's a faster method, but it also increases the risks." Kaito ran a hand through his hair and continued, "Can I have a shadow clone or two around?" Katsuyu gave an almost apologetic shake of her body. "Maintaining shadow clones would divide your concentration, Kaito-kun. To learn senjutsu, you must have unwavering focus on gathering nature energy properly. If your mind is split between clones, you're far more likely to slip up and absorb too much. That could end badly." Kaito lowered his head, trying not to grimace. I really can't leave Mom and Naruto without guards, he thought. But if I can't keep a shadow clone active to watch them? Tsunade, who had returned to the couch, observed his troubled expression. Brat, she said, her tone softer than usual, if you're worried about leaving your family unprotected, don't be. They'll be fine. You can't guard them every second of your life. Besides, you've got the Hiraishin. If something does go wrong, you can teleport to them in a heartbeat. Kaito exhaled, relief and lingering concern warring on his features. I suppose that's true. Still, I just don't want what happened that night to happen again. Tsunade turned to Kaito. So, do you still want to learn senjutsu? Kaito nodded. He opened his eyes and looked back at the slug. I understand the dangers. But I also know I need to do this. The night before showed me how close I came to losing my family. I want to protect them, and everyone else I care about. Please, Lady Kotsuyu, teach me. Tsunade gave a slight nod, acknowledging Kaito's determination. You heard him. He's not going to take no for an answer, she said with a mild scoff, though a small, reluctant smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Well, Kotsuyu replied softly, turning fully to face the boy, to train in senjutsu with me, you'd first need to become my summoner. That means you have to sign the Shikotsu Forest summoning contract. Lady, is that okay with you, Lady Tsunade? Tsunade raised a hand dismissively, waving it through the air. He can sign it if he wants. I have no objection. Kotsuyu secreted a large scroll. The scroll rolled onto the floor in front of her with a heavy thump, appearing far too big to have fit inside her small body. Kaito-kun, if you would sign your name in blood, that will seal the contract, Kotsuyu explained. Kaito nodded. He glanced at Tsunade, who took the scroll from Kotsuyu's side and set it carefully on the ground, unfurling it so that its length stretched out. Kaito took in the sight. There were multiple names, many of which had faded or grayed out with age. His eyes trailed to the only name still vibrant, Senju Tsunade. Beside her name were multiple others that were grayed out, most of them from the Senju clan. One in particular caught his eye, Senju Hashirama. Kaito took a kunai from his pouch, pressing the tip to his thumb until a bead of blood welled up. Then he smeared it across his fingertips, quickly writing Uzumaki Kaito in neat characters beside Tsunade's name. Finally, he placed his bloody fingertips on the contract, leaving a red stamp of each finger as tradition dictated. Once done, Tsunade said, Well, kid, congrats. You are officially a summoner of the Shikotsu Forest now. Kaito nodded and asked, When can we start? Not so fast, brat, Tsunade interrupted. I can't have you leave on a training trip right now. The village is in a precarious spot. We just cleaned up after that incident, and we have missions piling up. I can't spare you going off to Shikotsu Forest for training just yet. Kaito tilted his head. Ha! Tsunade nodded again. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Right now, I need every jonin in the village to take on high-level missions. The village took a hit, morale is shaky, and as the new Hokage, I have to rebuild trust and stability. Kaito's brow furrowed. Ha! But I'm a chunin, not a jonin. She cut him off with a wry grin. A chunin, huh? Well, that's about to change. As one of my first acts as Hokage, I'm promoting you to jonin. You're far too skilled to remain a mere chunin. I need you on higher-level missions, so congratulations, she added with a smirk, crossing her legs. You're a jonin now, as of today. Kaito nodded and asked, When can we start? Not so fast, brat, Tsunade interrupted. I can't have you leave on a training trip right now. The village is in a precarious spot. We just cleaned up after that incident, and we have missions piling up. I can't spare you going off to Shikotsu Forest for training just yet. Kaito tilted his head. Ha! Tsunade nodded again. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Right now, I need every jonin in the village to take on high-level missions. The village took a hit, morale is shaky, and as the new Hokage, I have to rebuild trust and stability. Kaito's brow furrowed. Ha! But I'm a chunin, not a jonin. She cut him off with a wry grin. A chunin, huh? Well, that's about to change. As one of my first acts as Hokage, I'm promoting you to Jonin. You're far too skilled to remain a mere chunin. I need you on higher-level missions, so congratulations, she added with a smirk, crossing her legs. You're a Jonin now, as of today. The sun hung high over Konoha, bathing the bustling streets in bright, warm light. Villagers hurried about, stopping at market stalls, chatting in small groups, and greeting passing shinobi. It had been 6 months since Tsunade had taken office as the 5th Hokage, and the village had largely recovered from the earlier attacks. Morale was high, and the plan to better integrate the Uchiha-clan into the main divisions of Konoha was going smoothly. People seemed happier these days, and there was a lighter atmosphere with Tsunade as their Hokage. Inside the Hokage's office, the mood was a bit more serious. Kaito stood next to Hotaru, both looking a little worn from their latest mission. They had just returned to the village after a full week away, and their clothes still showed signs of travel. Dust clung to their boots, and there was a tiredness around their eyes. Lady Tsunade, Hotaru began politely, bowing her head. We managed to retrieve the hostage without them getting hurt, and we escorted her to the hotel where she'll be staying. Tsunade, sitting behind her desk, nodded. She had a thick file open in front of her. That's good to hear, she said, scanning what looked like a mission report. The daimyo of the Land of Bears will be happy to hear that his niece is safe. Well done, both of you. She placed the report on top of another stack of papers and gave a small smile. You two have been on a roll. You have the highest mission completion rate since I took charge. Kaito let out a low grumble under his breath and muttered, because you are a slave driver, you keep sending us on back-to-back missions. Tsunade's eyes narrowed as she looked at him. Did you say something, brat? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Her tone was firm, but not entirely unkind. Kaito straightened, quickly masking his annoyance. No, nothing, he said, trying to sound more cheerful. I said that we're happy to serve you. Tsunade leaned back in her chair, smirking just a little. Good to hear, she replied, looking at some documents on her desk. Now, I have another mission for you too. There's a huge backlog right now, and we're short on people to handle them. Hearing that, both Kaito and Hotaru paled, alarm flitting across their faces. Hotaru glanced worriedly at Kaito, then took a tiny step forward. Lady Tsunade, she began nervously, may we take a break before leaving on another mission? Tsunade sighed dramatically and put on a mock frown. I was just about to assign you to another mission, she said, feigning disappointment. She even placed the back of her hand against her forehead for effect. Then, after a long pause, she waved her hand in resignation. Fine. You both can take a break. Now get out of here before I change my mind. Hotaru wasted no time in bowing. Thank you, Lady Tsunade, she said quickly. She nudged Kaito, urging him to follow, and began moving toward the door in a hurry, eager to escape. But as Hotaru reached the threshold, she noticed that Kaito wasn't with her. Turning, she saw him still standing in front of Tsunade's desk, looking thoughtful. Kaikuan? She asked, confused. Tsunade, who had picked up a few papers to continue working, looked up again. What's up, brat? She asked, her tone blunt but curious. Need something else? Kaito slowly scratched the back of his head, looking a bit embarrassed. He forced a small smile. Yeah, I have a request, he said quietly. Tsunade's eyes flickered with interest. She set the paper on the desk, leaning back in her chair. Her face turned serious, and she crossed her arms. A request, huh? I hope it's not something that could kill you, like the last time you wanted to learn senjutsu. Kaito raised his hands quickly. No, nothing like that, he said. This is about Kakashi. Kakashi? Tsunade repeated, leaning forward slightly. What about him? Taking a breath, Kaito lifted his gaze, meeting Tsunade's eyes. Could you remove Kakashi from ANBU? He asked, a hint of urgency in his voice. Tsunade's eyebrows shot up in confusion. Why would you want me to do that? Kaito's expression grew more serious. I don't think ANBU is helping him, he said. He should never have been put there in the first place. I once asked Dad why he placed Kakashi in ANBU, and he told me he really hadn't known how to deal with Kakashi after Rin died. Kaito sighed, looking down at the floor. The third Hokage recommended it as a way to keep Kakashi busy, but it wasn't the right call. Dad regretted it. He told me he planned to remove Kakashi from ANBU and train him personally, like he did before, after Naruto was born. But, you know what happened? Sighing, Kaito ran a hand through his hair. Kakashi had a difficult life, first his father, then his team, one by one. He's gotten into this mindset that if he gets too close to people, he'll end up losing them, you know? Mom's been trying to help him, inviting him over for dinners at our place, setting him up on dates, and all that, but he's always away on missions. He's blocking out his social life, trying to drown himself in work so he's too busy to focus on what's happening around him. He's my friend, and I want him to be happy, you know? I think taking him off ANBU and making him spend more time with his friends will help him. Hataru looked sad upon hearing that. Tsunade pushed her chair back and stood, walking to the front of the desk. She leaned against it, crossing her arms under her chest as she studied Kaito's face. That's a good reason, she said, closing her eyes briefly. But Kakashi is very important to the ANBU. I get what you're saying, though. The kid has emotional baggage from the Third Shinobi War, yet another thing that bastard caused, sending children barely old enough into combat. She paused, then let out a tired breath and massaged her forehead. I'll think about it, kid. I understand your point, but I can't just pull him out without planning. She opened her eyes again, then arched an eyebrow. I'm surprised you didn't say anything about your other friend, Itachi. And that wraps up today's episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother. Kaito's journey is only getting more intense, and the future of the ninja world is changing with every step he takes. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that like button, share the video with other Naruto fans, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Drop your theories in the comments. I love reading them. See you in the next episode.